What is going on, L&M family? I'm back again, this time with Miss Rebecca Davison, who comes all the way from New Zealand. She's, of course, this is a virtual thing, but she's in the future. So she's going to help us understand what we need to do to become the promise we're intended to be. She's the founder of Intuitive Life Academy. She's got massive, massive experience and results in coaching female entrepreneurs. And she's also a podcast host, so I got to have my A game on, right? Because I don't want to let her down, of the Intuitive Abundance podcast. And so I'm going to make you wait to meet her because I got to give the shout out to our L&M family member out there. And this one goes out to Miss Yesenia. Yesenia, I really appreciate you taking the time to leave this comment, review, thought, idea. You know how meaningful it is to me. And so Yesenia says, this book was so much more than I expected, and many stories really resonated with me. The one that stuck out the most was story number 20. Why can't I see what they see? And so, Miss Yesenia, thank you for that. Because that, I don't know if you noticed or probably guessed, as I was telling that story or writing it, it brought a lot of emotion. It's a really meaningful story, and it's in the book. In case you're wondering what book she's referencing, it's the Becoming the Promise You're Intended to Be. Folks out there, really appreciate y'all taking the time to do the stars and the comments and the sharing and all that thing. So please leave me a comment. I will be happy to celebrate you on a future podcast. And with that, let's get to know Miss Rebecca. Miss Rebecca, how are you?
I'm great, thanks, Jesse. So good to be here and share energy with you and have this conversation. I'm really excited.
Oh, me too. And also, full confession, I dragged my heels for what, about 4 or 5 months to finally get back to you to actually schedule this interview.
Okay, things always happen in perfect timing, right?
You're extremely gracious, and I'm grateful to you for that. Thank you for being patient with me, and I'm super glad we were able to make this work. And so I guess let's get it kicked off. What are the fascinating, magical things that people should know about you?
Oh, that is such a great question. I love it. And there's so many different ways to go with that. One, first and foremost, I'm really tenacious. If I set my mind to something, I'm like, I'm going to figure it out. Even if it looks like it's going to threaten my life, I will figure it out. I am really determined. I'm like, yes, this is all going to work for me. And I sometimes wonder if that's intrinsic, like I've always had that. But I'm the kind of person, I'm super curious. I think curiosity is one of the most underrated values you can have. I'm the kid that was always picking up the stones to see what's underneath them, because curiosity takes you a long way. At school, I had somebody say to me, curiosity killed the cat, and they didn't know satisfaction brings it back, right? There's me in a nutshell. Like, you are given this so many gifts, skills, and talents, and you want to be curious about that for yourself. What are they? Who am I? What am I all about? Is there really a dragon in a dark cave inside of me? Can I go inside and meet it and see what happens? So I'm also a Scorpio. If anybody does human design, I'm a 6/4 generator, which means that I'm responsive. I generate energy when I come into a room. So I love that about myself, right? Like, I want to see everybody happy and successful, and for them to know that they have it inside of them. And when you're tenacious, it really pays off. And I know already that you are too, right? Because that's why you end up attracting people who are similar.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. There's so much goodness there. Yes, I have been accused of being tenacious. Most of the time, they don't use that word. They say I'm obsessive. I'm hearing tenacity. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
A little relentless, over the top sometimes.
Yeah.
Now, so you mentioned that when you were young, the curiosity was a thing, and it's obvious that you've embraced. You use the combination of words of gifts, skills, and talents. I feel like we all, at least for me, I've had this set of gifts and talent for a long time, for the majority of my life, but I didn't recognize them as gifts and talents until, we'll say, this third half of my life. So I'm curious, in your situation, was it ultra clear to you that this determination, tenacity, and curiosity were those gifts and talents, and that was set a straight line? to where you're at today, or what did that look like?
Is it ever a straight line? Do you know? Ever a straight line. Well, interestingly, like one of the guiding principles in my life, because I grew up, I was really fortunate. I went to some great schools. You never really identified with the education system, though. I was a rebel at school. That archetype kicked in, and I was like, nobody's going to tell me what to do. I'm going to do it myself. And which carried you a long way as a teenager, needing to figure out how to do authority and to be in your authority, even though, granted, when you do that, you can lean toward the negative, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's a little bit out of balance. Like there's a rebel and then there's extreme rebel. But again, that curiosity of, well, what does it look like for me to be the leader in my own life? What does it look like to be the person who's taking 100% accountability? And oh my goodness, like learning things like I'm blaming other people. That is not accountability. Or I'm judging other people. That's not accountability. So I think as we journey, we have to let some things go. We have to pick some things up. Some of those things are really particular to your humanity, because spirituality or your spirit is always traveling light, right? It has everything that it needs. But for our human, we do need to cultivate certain aspects, and curiosity is definitely one of them. Tenacity, and I think people have this already, but they often don't recognize it about themselves. So when you're talking about getting to that later stage in life and you're like, oh, actually seeing that it's been there all along. I love that saying, you don't need eyes to see, you need vision.
Ooh, yes.
You need to be able to see that you have actually always kind of been guided on your path. There's always been a part of you that's that way, not that way. There's always been, and again, if you go that way, you get feedback. Then you the path. So there's always like this guiding force. But I've been always super curious about, well, what is that? Is it energy? Some people call it God. Some people call it universe, source energy, whatever you like. There's so many different names. But there is a part of you that knows more than your mind, and definitely knows more than your emotion. Now, bringing all those pieces together, right? So you can actually be in harmony about it. Like my mind's on the right page and my emotions have been taken care of. So they're all clean and shiny too. And then it's easy to communicate with my body. Body's huge, right? In terms of telling you whether you're on track or off. Yeah, it loves to communicate. A lot of people, when they say to me, oh, I'm tired, I will say, is that emotional or physical?
Oh, it kind of takes me back to when I was a youngling. My mom used to come home from working 2 jobs and night school and the whole thing. And it sounds harsh, but it was awesome. It's like the funniest thing. She would say, can you guys just let me die for a minute? And when we were young, oh, that means leave mom alone, right? Sure, it was kind of tough language, but what she meant, she is physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, and she was doing home health at the time. So I know that was an emotional tax on herself. So she was like exhausted in all 3 realms. I didn't understand. So like the question you're asking is, are you physically, are you spiritually or emotionally or mentally? Those are all very significant delineations.
Yeah.
That's something that you just intuitively knew?
Well, I think through the process of my own journey is realizing, and let's talk about it, because it's really helpful to actually put them in their own channel. Like your mind, oh my God, how many stories does it tell? And it's just, oh my God, they just keep on coming. Sometimes I call my mind Lassie. You know how like you're just sitting there and a thought or an idea comes in, and then before you know it, Lassie's on a run. Like she's jumped over fences, she's in a different country, and you're like, I was just sitting here and my mind is just going, zhong. And to learn how to master that, right? To be like, do I want Lassie to be over there? Like, come back to the here and now. And knowing how the mind works, that you're not your thoughts. One of the greatest analogies I've ever heard about this is to understand that your thoughts are like the cars that drive past the window, and your mind is the observer. But if the dog runs into traffic, it's going to get run over. So if you identify with your thought, it's going to end up causing you pain. You're going to think, this is who I am. You're the observer of them. So creating space between yourself and the thought. I'm sure you've heard that before. But again, understanding.
Oh, yeah.
So the thoughts, because a lot of people have real trouble quietening their mind I actually spent about 18 months, Jesse, just observing the thoughts. And if I didn't like them, I was like, no, you're not allowed here. And it was a in-depth process, but I'm so grateful that I spent the time to do it, because what I was telling myself is I'm the one in control here, not the thoughts. Like, I'm the master, not the slave to the thought process.
Yep.
And now my mind is pretty blank, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, often my clients will say to me, "Oh, you're teaching us not to think." And I'm like, yeah, because your thoughts are actually the least powerful part of yourself.
There's a lot here.
Yeah.
Like you talked about Lassie running into the other country.
Yeah.
Well, my Lassie also likes to run into the past and into the future all the time, and other yards in other countries in the middle of the street. And I think that's a thing we all kind of have, unless we intentionally work to build the skill to be the observer, to disconnect, and like you said, recognize that I am not my thoughts. I don't have to react and let them consume me entirely, because that produces some less than amazing results or outcomes. Now,
Yeah.
really curious, what were some of the moments, the life moments that led you down this path? Because what you're talking about, it's not something you can understand by listening to a podcast or reading a book, right? Like, it's based in it has to be anchored in some significant life events or life lessons.
Yeah.
What were some of those that made it clear to you, this is what I need to be doing?
It actually takes me back to a moment when I was on the phone with my mom, and I had just come out of divorce. I had all the trappings, Jesse, of a great life. Right? I had this beautiful red Alfa Romeo in the garage. I owned my own home. I had all these beautiful friends. I had a great job, which was paying well. It was kind of like a high status job. I worked in banking and I worked for private banks. So I worked for high net worth clients, but I was miserable, and I was making some really dumb and toxic choices in regards to relationships, in regards to drinking, and working in banking is stressful, right? It's very head-based energy. So I would get to the end of the day, and you know how your mom would be like, "Oh, just give me a minute to die." I would just be like, "Give me 2 bottles of Chardonnay." It's like, oh, that wasn't every night. But do you know what I mean? Like, it was a problem because I didn't know how to process my emotions. And you'd get the booze blues and I would feel terrible. And I was like, and I felt terrible because from the external, it looked like I had it all. But internally, I was dying. And having gone through this divorce, which is a huge reality check, and saying to my mum, I want to live a big life. And it was like, as I spoke those words, it was like the universe was like, I hear you. And I think it was about a week later, a friend of mine sent me a link, and it was actually to a gratitude log, which is where you would log in every day and express what you were grateful for. So I think gratitude's always part of the journey, often at the start, because it's one of the best things that can help you to shift your frequency. But that was a scary time. And again, that really came into the next column, which was the emotions, right? Like, so scared. You know, humans don't do well with uncertainty. We have to learn how to trust our intuition or spirit or that aspect of energy that is bigger than us. Like but emotionally, I was petrified. I was like, I don't know where I'm going. I'm stuck in this job, which I don't like. I don't even like math. I used to joke with the clients, thank goodness they give us calculators, because it wasn't my thing at school, but it offered security. It gave me that sense of security.
Yep.
Like, this is safe, right? This is a dependable, regular job. You're going to get paid every second Thursday. They're a great benefit. Spent a lot of time telling you how awesome the bank was. And that it became a little, it's institutionalized, like, stay here because this is safe and good for you. And we'll give you wine on a Friday night, and we'll give you morning tea on a Friday lunchtime, whatever. And again, you get indoctrinated into thinking that this is the only option. But at that point in time, even though I wasn't really fully fledged in listening to my intuition, there was still part of me that knew this is a really cool lesson, Jesse. I loved this. That no matter where you go, that's where you are. So it was like my this was enough to tell me, you need to figure it out within this job, which got disestablished. Right? Like, my ego went into orbit, but it was like my soul saying, your time here is done, but figure it out and be happy here now, because wherever you go, that's who you're going to be. You don't want to take this bad attitude or fearful nature into your next experience, because it's not the circumstances, it's you.
Cool. Girl, yes, it's the preach. I came across that saying from a different perspective, right? Because I was maybe not a different perspective, but I was in a different situation. I wrestled with alcohol addiction, alcoholism, self-destructive behavior for a very long time. And it was always, I need another different girlfriend. I need to be on a different project, different job, different. And one of the guys at the group was like, Jesse, everywhere you go, there you are. You keep trying to change these things and it's you, dummy. Like, oh, damn. Yeah, you're right. Oh, son of a gun. Now I got to work on me.
Well, you sounded like you did that pretty well. Most people find that really difficult, right? It's so confronting to realize, oh, it's me. I'm the problem.
Yes. Yes. Well, and it took, I mean, it takes work. I want to make sure that L&M family or listeners out there are like, yes, this sounds really great. Like just the gratitude thing. That's where I started. It's like every day, what are you grateful for? And I'm like, what are you talking about grateful for?
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that that was my initial response indicated that I was ungrateful. And that was at that time, that was the source of my misery, because I was blind to all of the gifts, all of the amazing things that I was taking for granted.
Yeah.
And then when I saw like, oh, wait a minute, there's so many things. I had to start off generic, right? I'm grateful I got clean clothes today.
Yes.
Because it was such a weird, abnormal practice. I'm grateful I got hot coffee today. And then I was able to get a little more vulnerable with myself and do that introspection and self-reflection to say, and I'm really grateful that I haven't hurt anybody in the way that I could have.
Yeah.
And I'm really grateful that I still have my mental capacity, even though I've killed millions of brain cells. I'm grateful that I have relationships with people that should have disowned me, but they're being gracious and keeping me in their life. It's that progression to go from grateful for coffee to grateful for the grace of human beings. That was over like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's not instantaneous. And I totally relate. I remember one day kind of rolling my eyes at myself and going, I'm just grateful that I've got arms and legs, because some people don't. That's all I could find. Oh, I know that. But also too, isn't it interesting that you and I both got that awareness and did it? You know what I mean?
Check it out, hometowners. So Primo, he's a little bit embarrassed about like asking for some backup, some esquina. And so I want to hit you up, and like if you're digging this content, pues give it un like, give it the stars, or leave a comment, But if you really, really want to see Primo like get all chiflado, like for the reels, hit him up on the socials, Holmes. Like if you give him a comment in the socials and let him know what you thought about the thing, pues he's gonna light up. But only do it if you mean it, because yeah, you already know how Primo is. Se cree mucho el cabrón. So if you could do that, if you could leave a comment or a rating or the stars or whatever, that would be cool, man.
Like sometimes intuition is giving you the awareness and giving you, and you're like not doing it. You're not doing it. All right. Your higher self is always do it. But the human self is like, like procrastination. But realizing, I guess too, when you're down to nothing and you're like, holy cow, you start realizing that this is going to get me out of here. Like maybe not even consciously, maybe more on a deeper level, that if I don't do something, I'm going to end up in a car accident or dead or hurting somebody else or killing somebody else. Like something bad is going to happen if I keep on going down this path. And it can feel like you're turning like a steamship around, right? It's but you keep
totally different. Different trajectory. Don't know how to do it, never done it before. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
Because the path I know, proven. This other path it's not. And so figuring that out, now I practice the thinking of, I don't need to know all the answers.
Yeah.
And all the paths that have the answers or the questions answered, they're boring. I have no interest in them. So I've got to find a new path. And the only way I know to do that is by taking the next rightest step.
Yeah.
And learning from it and moving forward and learning from it and moving forward.
Yeah.
And you said something that was so awesome that I want to go back at because it's relative to this idea. You said the trappings of a great life.
Trappings.
Power. And now in that arrangement of words, the trappings of a great life, I've been playing with this thought or question. How much do I sacrifice? How much joy, fulfillment, sharing my gifts and talents with the world? How much of that do I sacrifice for comfort and convenience? And for me, that idea, the comfort and convenience, falls under the umbrella of trappings of a great life. What are your thoughts there?
This is really interesting. And I totally get what you're saying, because for me, though, when I was in that experience, house, car, friends, social life was all about having a party and a good time and wearing beautiful clothes and being seen, whatever. It's false economy when you're miserable on the inside and you're drinking because you're miserable. Now, here's the irony. Trappings, literally, it was an imprisonment of my own making, thinking that I have to have these things in order to be seen to be successful. Or, look, I am successful, and then kind of being horrified and embarrassed and ashamed that you're not actually happy. And then unraveling all of that, which was actually really interesting for me working in banking and looking at money and how wealthy people did money and what they made it mean in money psychology. Learning from that and then going through that process of really being stripped back, the process of authenticity, vulnerability, intimacy, all of that is not going to keep you warm at night. It is, in fact, just going to make you really cold. You're going to be like, where is the connection? Where is the love? The irony is, in my experience, stripping all of that back, but then what you create abundantly, financially, it is from a place of deep satisfaction and fulfillment, and you get to experience more abundance. In banking, Jessie, like my income was capped. I make 4 times more than I ever did in banking now because I believed in myself.
Wow. Yeah.
But the relationship I have with money is completely different because that was fear-based and this was purpose-based, but having the courage to let go of it because it's not serving you, and the lifestyle and the identity and how we can get we're doing it from a place of naivety, really. And then we're like, I've got it all, but it's not working. And then it's okay. What does it look like to create from purpose? And something you said before, which is so true, is a lot of people overlook how amazing their life already is. Often future casting, right? They're going into the future and going, it needs to look different than what it is now, rather than being satisfied with what they've got. And both you and I know, in regards to gratitude, that you have to flip that around. Because if you're not grateful now, you're not going to be grateful when you get there. And ironically, gratitude brings it in faster. But also to have a relationship with not just money, but spirit and your purpose, like you said before, which is unique to you. You're going to figure that out for yourself. Right? You're going to be the one who goes, what does it look like for me? And this is why I teach people. I know I'm an intuition coach, which is more about spirit, but how does spirit see your money? Can you feel that kind of lean into that? It's like, because spirit is completely neutral. Humans are not, right? Like with our lovely little egos, should look like this. I've got the house and the car and the social life and the money and I'm doing really great. All ego-based. That had to be imploded in my world. And then I had to look at creating a new relationship with money, with material items, and have it be aligned with spirit. You literally do get to have it all, but having it all also means feeling the way that you want to feel, creating the intimacy, creating the connection, being the person that you want to be. You're not sitting there going, oh, I'm so great because I have stacks of cash. That's not intimacy, right? That's just, it's a talent, right? And often people don't understand this. They're like, well, I've got all the money. Why don't people adore me? And it's because you're not having intimacy with yourself. You're not letting people see, allowing yourself to be vulnerable. So yeah, there has to be a deconstruction, I think. And, and that's a big loss. It's a loss of an old identity. But how many times do we do that on the journey?
Oh, God. Yeah. The loss of the old identity. I remember one of the early on when I was still figuring out how to get sober and stay sober. I'm 7 years and 10 months.
Yeah, it's a great.
9 months sober now.
It's awesome.
Thank you. Now, early on, it was difficult. One of the challenges was my identity. I was so enamored, infatuated, in love with my reputation. And now here's a sick thing. You've probably, maybe you haven't seen this before. You tell me.
No.
It was interesting because I was the crazy wild guy that did the thing that nobody else would.
Oh my
And said the things that nobody else
Great
would.
at parties.
Yes, absolutely. And so it was this thing would happen. I'd show up at a party. It's, yeah, he's here. He's going to be a mayor. And I needed that. And then I would do monkey dance. And then I would resent everybody because they wanted me to dance. But if they didn't want me to dance, I would be upset.
Yeah.
And so it was like this crazy cycle of recognize me, give me attention, shower me with all that stuff. And then I'm going to be mad because that's all you want me for. And it took work for me to even understand that was happening because it was going through an identity shift. Like whatever that was, I had to let go of it. And even now when I'm going golfing with a couple buddies of mine on Sunday.
Yeah.
One of them I went to high school with. So he knows those stories. And when we start telling those stories again, it's kind of like, yeah, that's me. No, wait a minute. I don't know. Let it go. Don't go embracing that thing because I know where it takes me. So yes, identity, huge.
Yeah. I think that's really cool. I look back on my old identities and I have a lot of affection for them. My drunk was really fun. She loved it. She had a great time. I don't actually regret it. I've also forgiven myself for it, right? That I didn't know better, right? I have affection for her. I'm like, oh, you're so cute that you didn't know any better. You're so lovable and it was deeply rooted in a lot of shame, often at the time. Shame. Oh my goodness. We're all really what we're looking for at the bottom of the bottle is God, really. That's what we're trying to get into ourselves.
Yeah. Transformational, difficult.
Yes.
All right. So you said you had to forgive yourself. And you saw my response. Oh my goodness. Yes. Now, for the listener out there that's stuck or maybe is hearing this and, oh crap, I'm there too. How do you start the yourself process? What would you suggest to them?
I think one of the best ways to do this and the fastest way is to actually align with spirit. And I'll give that to you as like on a platter really, which is how does spirit, your soul, your higher self see you? They love you, right? They love you when you've been mad. They love you when you've been, maybe thrown up. They love you, right, when you've been ill, when you've been happy, when you've been heartbroken. They love you when you're the fun person at the party, jumping into the pool or breaking a glass or whatever. Your higher self is in total acceptance of every choice that you make. And one of the best things about understanding that is you can start bringing in that acceptance. What's the process? It's really like self-acceptance and self-love and self-acceptance hang out together because love is a form of acceptance. To be the person who's, okay, I didn't know what I was doing maybe, but I get to make a new choice. And this is what awareness, intuition is all about. I'm aware I make a new choice. It's not, I'm aware I spend 3 months beating myself up and then I make a new choice. I'm going to let go of the guilt. Guilt and shame, as we know, they're both the most contracted energies on the bottom of the scale of consciousness. They do not serve you. They're not the truth of who you are. Now, guilt can be beneficial in terms of if you've hurt somebody to reconcile that, shift it, to apologize, etc. But really, beyond that, it doesn't serve any purpose. And people can often not even understand that they're in guilt sometimes. They're projecting it outwards and just making life wrong or themselves wrong when they actually feel guilty. And sometimes when you hear the word guilt, it's hard to actually grasp it fully, but that's why you like to use the courtroom. The irony is, in your courtroom, you're the judge, you're the defendant, you're the prosecutor, And you're the jury. You are all of it. You are the one saying, you've done something wrong. You're the
Yes.
one saying, no, I haven't. You're the judge sitting up there going, oh, what's going on here? And the jury who's deciding your fate. So understanding that guilt versus innocence. And this is where the ego gets in the way, right? The ego reflex, right, wrong, good, bad, innocent, guilty. Humans often lump themselves into that.
Yes.
Spirit knows that you're innocent. Your human self will always stay in the energy of guilt unless you start aligning with the truth of who you are. And that forgiveness process is quite dirty to go, okay, what does it take to forgive myself? It really takes me being willing to align with truth. And truth will always bruise the ego. But when you are being unkind to yourself or beating up on yourself or making yourself wrong, it just becomes unbearable. So there has to be a release. And Spirit is there supporting you, connecting with you, inviting you. That's why forgiveness, you really want to make it a day-to-day, moment-to-moment practice. Somebody cuts you off at the line.
Yeah.
Love you, I forgive you, right? You do a step in a conversation. I love myself, I forgive myself. To be that person who's willing to just keep on shifting the energy is a low vibe. Innocence is a high vibe. You get to choose. And it really is that. So people think healing takes a long time. No, it doesn't. If you align with the truth you are, you can actually shift really quickly. But you have to let go of guilt to do it, right?
100%.
The ball in the bottom of a bucket, if it's being held down by guilt, you let the guilt go, it's naturally going to rise to the surface. The truth of who you are.
Yes.
We hold ourselves down, as we know, but giving yourself permission is a huge thing. Often too, if it's forgiving somebody else, which is actually you, by the way, if you understand spiritual law, we're all connected, we're all one. If somebody perpetrated against you, it's actually just kind of you. It's yourself, right? A difficult concept to understand. It's very good in terms of harmonizing your reality, like understanding your reality is you pushed outward. So when you have a villain in your story, I remember doing this with my sister. Like, what is it that I don't like about her? And I was like, oh, she's such a victim. And then I went, hang on a minute. Where it might be a victim, it's like the penny dropped. And I was like, again, it's not her. It's my perception of her. She's just minding her own business, doing whatever she's doing. Yeah. So taking that level of responsibility, you set yourself free. Yeah, but forgiveness, I think sometimes, often if it feels really hard or really difficult, because there's a lot of myths around forgiveness, that if you're forgiving somebody, especially if they've done you some deep damage, it is that you're letting them off the hook, that they're going to get away scot-free, that you have to be friends with them. No, you don't. You can forgive people and never talk to them again. You can forgive people and trust that life is going to take care of them in terms of their own karma. Right? You don't have to play God and do it for them. So being the person to start with, to just be willing. Willingness is huge. Like I'm willing more today than I was yesterday if it's really hard for you. If you're just like, there's no way, because your brain will be the gatekeeper. The brain will go, it's not safe. The ego will go, what are you talking about? If I forgive this person, I'm going to get hurt again. So you get completely active and triggered, doing the work to soften the ego, let the ego know that Spirit has got me. Spirit is in acceptance of me and the other person. This is a gift for you because it's actually helping you to take back your power. Learn something about yourself. Learn to be a person who's really good at forgiveness. I attribute all my happiness to forgiveness. Forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others.
Yes.
And even interesting things, Jessie, like forgiving yourself for where you made material items more important than connection. Forgiving yourself, thinking that that was important. Forgiving yourself for other things that you don't necessarily think are present or relevant, but they're huge, right? Forgiving yourself for not knowing how.
Yeah.
Right? Like when somebody,
right,
was trying to create connection and you didn't know how to do it because you were too scared, but you couldn't tell them that you were too scared. So they just ended up feeling totally rejected. And the thing about that is nobody really, unless they're unwell, nobody usually goes out of their way to be intentionally malicious to hurt other people. Most of it comes through lack of awareness.
And then we build that.
Yeah. And forgiveness, one thing I will say about forgiveness, you have to do it with Spirit's help. You can't do it by yourself. It is a heavenly frequency. We need to call on spirit to help us with that, right? Which means that we need to do it from the heart, not the head.
One thing on forgiveness I've heard that really kind of helped me say yes, like to put handles on the idea, was forgiveness is to forgive somebody else. Forgiveness is me releasing or surrendering my right to punish them or to be angry with them, because I hold on to it and it robs joy of me, and then it flips around and eats me up inside. Forgiving yourself, that was a big one. Super huge concept, and it finally came clear in my head that it was necessary, because I held on to my guilt on purpose for a long time, because it was like the fuel for me to do things and accomplish things. I would tell people that. They're like, that's not your fault. You're a kid. Shut your mouth. I need it. Like, I would straight out say that. Anyways, eventually it got to a point, it's like, okay, it's also killing me.
Yeah.
And I had to do life differently.
Yeah.
It was limiting me. Like, I was, yes, high performing and like on the outside, right? Everything looked great. But my counselor, one of my counselors in rehab said, Jesse, if you continue living life the way you're living it, you will never become the promise you are intended to be. And when he said that, I knew exactly what he was talking about. Even though I can't articulate what he was talking about, I know what he was talking about.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, okay, so how am I doing life? I'm isolated. I'm guarded. I'm berating, judging myself all the time. Like, there was a lot of things. It became ultra clear that I needed to start doing. I think the first thing was, I need to forgive myself for all of the things, and I need to learn how to figure out how to do that daily. Because now you've mentioned the spirit and frequency. What is the relationship between spirit and frequency? And even what is that stuff for the lay person like me that maybe doesn't understand?
Yeah. And that's such a great question, Jesse. I appreciate you asking it, because it's not always easy to answer, but I'll give it my best shot. So if you tune into your heart right now, your heart is beating. There is an energy that beats your heart. That is heaven frequency. Okay. That's the thing, isn't it? Okay. Where we spend so much time there going, where is it? Where is it? And then the universe goes, look inside your own heart. I've left it where you will always find it. But when we go out there and we're looking, and then we're like, oh, I have to come back. Yeah, this is where it is. This is where heaven is. It's going to be created from the inside out, from me being me, from me embracing more of this, from me connecting to more of this. So hopefully that's helpful to kind of bring them together. But where is God inside of you? And from there, it becomes an invitation to create a relationship with God, that energy, the frequency that beats your heart. Because you think about it, when you die, your spirit is going to leave your body. The thing that makes you alive is going to leave. It doesn't die. It just transitions. The frequency remains. If you've ever lost somebody, I lost my dad about 3 years ago. That love doesn't die. You can't kill energy. You can't destroy it. It can be cleared in transmutation, which is what happens for humans when they leave a physical body. They transcend ego. So that's why heaven always feels good. There's no ego in heaven. Right? And we get to be the person who's, oh my goodness, this is inside of me. This energy, this frequency, because God for a lot of people is a concept. But when you start going, oh, actually, no, it's right here. I had an experience of this, Jesse, where it was really profound. And some people would say it was the start of my spiritual awakening. It was very anti-religion when I was younger. I went to an Anglican girls' school. But I saw a friend in London that I hadn't seen for 5 years. I was really miserable. I was in my early 20s. I had broken up with a guy that I was completely in love with, and he meant so much to me. Both Scorpios, super deep. I bumped into this friend in London, moved from the States to come over to London. I bumped into her, hadn't seen her for 5 years. She opens up her journal, and she's got "Write to Becky" written in her journal. We haven't seen each other for 5 years. Here we are bumping into each other on the street in London. Wow. The chances of that. And then takes
Yeah.
me to church. I'm a little bit like, anyway, we're Pentecostal pastor. And he says, who wants to stand up and receive Christ? I'm literally internally rolling my eyes because I'm so anti-religion at this point. Anyway, I'm like, I'm there with my friend. It's her husband. I have to. I was thinking it's all very theatrical. I stood up. He comes over. He puts his hand on my head, and I call it getting zapped, fall onto the ground. But this sensation, right, like which was for my human self, it's like you, in that moment, I knew eternity. It was just complete oneness, bliss. Putting it into words diminishes the experience. It was incredible. And I was like, wow. And that has been, and I actually feel like the universe did that to me because I was so hard-headed. It was like it needed to crack me open like a nut. And to give me that experience, but also a guide. That's what you're moving towards. And all the work, of course, that is required in the journey. Granted, it's not instantaneous. You've probably seen that with the incoming generations. Like things are shifting quicker. We're moving into higher frequencies quicker. Understanding knowing yourself as an energetic being. Who am I? What frequency am I emitting? When I walk in the room, am I elevating the frequency? Like you want to be the light bringer. A lot of people talk about protecting your energy. Like from what? If you really understand who you are and you're fearless, there's nothing to protect yourself from. You're going to handle it no matter what happens. You're going to learn as a human what it is to have good boundaries because that's what your human needs to take care of themselves. When you speak to your boundaries and you're running high frequency energy, you will create miracles. But one of the fastest ways to align to that, of course, is forgiveness. It is a fundamental. And again, I'm a spiritual coach, right? But even last week, I was like, there was somebody in my awareness, and I was like, oh, yeah, it might be good to practice some forgiveness on that. And it had been in my awareness for a while. Finally, penny dropped, right? Did some processes on it. Boom. I was like, oh, my goodness, the difference inside of me. Huge. And that's when you said about letting go of your need or want to punish others. What you want to understand to flip that too, letting go of the need or want to punish myself. That we're doing by holding the energy of unforgiveness, you're actually punishing yourself. But the mind will convince you, right? The mind's the biggest gatekeeper.
Yeah, so much that totally aligned with what you're saying, at least from my perspective. And I also know a lot of people think I'm from outer space because of the way I think about things. One of the many things that I want the L&M family to like really anchor on here is you talked about, or what I took from it was we spend a lot of time looking outside of ourselves for spirituality, for God, for fulfillment, for meaning, for direction, for answers, for energy. And it's right here. It's within us. I've had many conversations about what I understand or recognize or label as the whispers. I think we talked about this a little bit. And so for me, the whispers are the data points, right? The signals, the things that I see out there in places they really shouldn't be. And they're signaling to me a specific action direction to take or do. And so when I do that, amazing, like you said, miracles happen. Things happen that I have no business being a part of. And it's funny because sometimes, I did that. And it's also, I absolutely did not do that. Like that came from something else that I just listened to and allowed it to be. That is, what do you think about that?
That's how the universe experiences itself, through you. Because as a human, we have a body, so we automatically feel separate from that oneness energy. The work for humans is to remember who you truly are, which is this one energy, which is when we're having this conversation. I'm looking at a facet of myself. You're looking at a facet of yourself and remembering that. Like our spirit is doing a big high five. Like we have soul, which is particular to our body and our personality, but we're connected in spirit. So you're right, like your human self from the level of mind is going to go, oh, I did that. And then it's going to doubt itself. It's going to go, did I? Did I do that? I'm not sure because I'm looking at reality in the interface. But spirit is going to sit there and go, yes, you did do that. But what we want to do is bring these two things together so you can remember that you're actually creating all of it. Spirit's with you moment to moment, guiding you, letting you know when you have that next drink, it doesn't really do well for you, for spirit. But again, the loving acceptance that's there. So this is where people do start to become supernatural, because they realize that there's so much more than their mind, their emotion, and their body. You're living in this infinite energy field, the energy that beats your heart, that beats everybody else's heart, which is why the heart is such a great connector. An open heart space, right? Like fills the world with love, understanding this. So you can actually shift into, yes, I did create that. I created it from the truth of who I am, because the truth of who I am lives in the energy that miracles are normal. Miracles are natural. In fact, if I'm not experiencing miracles on the daily, I'm out of alignment, which is a whole different world, right? For the ego self, which is fear-based, going right, wrong, good, bad. The ego, which is a reflex, you know, when you go to the doctor and they hit your knee and the knee goes, doink. The ego is a reflex like that.
Oh, yeah.
It is fear-based. So, and again, we've known so much about the ego. People make it wrong. It's actually trying to help you, but it's doing it from fear. So the ego is really the opposite, spirit. So who am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to fear? Or am I going to listen to love? If I was choosing love, and this is what happens when we heal, we don't need to heal anymore. We just need to create. This is why creation is often, again, right? Like as soon as you go, I don't need to heal anymore, I'm going to start creating, everything shifts in your reality, because you are a creator being. I did create that. But to get to a place where it's like, I am the creator through the mind, through the emotion, through the body, and through spirit, which is I'm an extension of the universe that's having this human experience so it can know who it is. And people often say, well, why is it that we have the negativity then? So you have to know what you're not in order to know what you are. The light helps you to see the dark. It sure does help to love all your darkness. And one thing that people would really love to know about fear, right? Fear frequencies like evil, demonic frequencies, they're all fear-based. So when you can sit with your own inner demons in love, they evaporate. Why, if anybody ever feels like any negative energy, laughter is one of the best things, right? Because it's a high vibration. Fear-based frequencies can't stay in the presence of love. Just like if you turn the light on, it's not dark anymore. So understanding this, but yeah, dropping into that powerfully. And I talk a lot about power in my work. And I know that you know this because you're already aligned with it. But people go into their heads about power and they look externally and they think politics or they think aggressive people doing bad things. When you're aligned to spiritual power, the energy that is beating your heart, you will go otherworldly. You literally become supernatural because you're tapped into this continuous, all-loving, no judgment, totally available for you at any moment frequency. So it's really about, who am I? Do I know who I am?
Yes. Thank you for articulating it so clearly because we need that. Like, I agree. I just know I can't say it as clearly as you can. Because for me, like the forgiveness part, I'm going to go back there real quick. For me to forgive myself, part of that path was I had to look at the dark side of me and recognize it as a part of me. And until I did that, that was difficult. Yes, I have the capability, the skill, if you will, to be dark and selfish and evil and whatever. I can do that. I did do that. And then, but I don't, like, it was a choice. I can choose not to do that and use my powers and my gifts and talents in that way. And then with that period of time, and as you talked about kind of these levels, I kept hearing levels, and I think about my energy and like the things that I'm able to contribute into other people's lives and into my own life. There was a point when I didn't forgive, when I had zero forgiveness for myself, I functioned from a victim reality. And once I got past the victim reality, I functioned from a guilt reality. I was guilty. So I was
Mhm.
not worthy or deserving of anything, but I needed to do good things. And if people, all that. And then when I graduated from that, it was more of a redemption reality,
Mhm.
meaning I'm I am redeemable. I'm not condemned for life. I'm redeemable.
Mhm.
And so I have to do things in order to earn that redemption.
Yeah.
And then I got to contribution.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at now. Is I have something to contribute into other people's lives, into the world.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm here to do. And so, like, when I say that, it doesn't usually make sense. People are like, what the hell are you talking about? But based on what you're talking about, okay, I'm not
Yes.
nuts. Well, maybe not entirely, at least.
Yeah, no, I totally get that because and I've seen people do this in really interesting ways, but like why do we do all this work? We do all the work for love. We do the work to experience ourselves as love. So to even because what you would have graduated through those levels is you would have had to have loved and accepted your inner victim to go to the next level. You would have had to have loved and accepted
Yep.
your guilt in order to go to the next level, right? You would have had to have loved and accepted the fact that your salvation is available to you to go to the next level, right? Like it's like a video game in some ways, right? Like to get to the next level, you need to master
Yeah,
this
totally.
Yeah, right? You need to master this level. And how do you know where you're at? You just need to look at your life. I always say the curriculum's always right in front of you because
Yeah.
if we're saying this right now and somebody's listening, you know if there's somebody in your life that you haven't forgiven.
Mhm.
And I know how tricky it can be because sometimes you have to forgive people over and over and over. What a one-stop shop. And the mind loves that. It loves to go, oh, I've done that. I've done that. And then but the healing process is like an upward oil because it's going to come back round again. The different being is that you might be able to process it quicker and faster and go up the column more quickly. But again, that doesn't mean that stuff doesn't happen, but your ability to be able to deal with it becomes more efficient and you're loving yourself more as you do it. Because some people, it can be very confronting for people to go,
Yes.
when you start talking about that, you can start bumping up against their ego and their ego's going, oh my God, I don't want to look at the negative things inside of me. Right. One thing that's good about myself, especially as the Scorpio, right? Like I go deep and I'm willing to look into the dark to be the person who is happy to sit with their own demons. Right? That takes courage.
Yeah.
That takes courage. Courage, where does courage come from? It comes from the heart. Guess what's in the heart? The truth of who you are. That energy that beats your heart is the truth of who you are. And this is the thing. I know you know this, Jessie. Life actually becomes more and more simple. The further you kind of ascend on your pathway into
Yeah.
yeah. Right? It just becomes so simple because it's like, am I in love or am I in fear? Is there part of me that I'm blocking at the moment? Do I feel any resistance in my body? My body's going to tell me, okay, there's resistance. How am I going to choose to respond to myself? What do I need? How can I love myself in the experience of this? A lot of people get bunched up on even looking at it. I often say, just soften into, how do you want to receive the love that you felt like maybe you never got? Can you give that to yourself? Right? Like if you had an absent parent, what's the love that you want to give yourself? Are you willing to give that to yourself? Because you're the only person who can. Right? Really, some of those deeper wounds, like you're the only person who can heal it. So again, being the person who's completely accountable, but also willing to go deep and often too, right, to be lovingly facilitated back to truth. Yeah.
The simplicity. It can be as simple as we allow it to be. And I also know this, and I think you'll agree, is any plan I make, 3-year plan, 2-year plan, 5-year plan, whatever that is, or goals, whatever people like talking about these things, whatever I think they're going to be on the path that I'm walking now, they're peanuts compared to what it will actually be.
Yeah.
So it's, why don't I make real clear plans? Because they're confining.
Yeah.
And if I keep on the path that I'm on, that little thing that I think is enormous right now is going to be a pebble. That's what I've experienced thus far.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to be open to amazingness because it's accessible.
Yeah.
It's totally accessible.
Yeah. And that's a big thing for human. Like the spirit always wants to go much bigger. in your human self, right? Spirit's like, there's no limits. The universe is always expanding. So it's natural for spirit to go, let's go. And then the human's like, what, wait, what? Hold on, what's happening, right? Like for me, I was wanting to run a retreat next year in Greece. I was like, yeah, next year will be great. No, it's not happening next year. It's happening this year. Because I was online one day and I swear to God, it was like spirit was walking through my hands and just booked it. And I'm like, oh my God, we're doing this in October this year. Yeah. We'd also done a timeline shifting and my programs on the Friday. So I was like, oh, it was your own medicine is working on you. Human self needs to get comfortable with that, get on board. That's the dance, right? How good is your relationship with uncertainty? Can you see it as a creative pursuit, or are you allowing it to bring up fear?
Yes. So if somebody wanted to connect with all of your awesomeness, how do we help them do that?
There's a couple of different ways, like connection on Facebook. I spend quite a bit of time in my Facebook group, which is Intuitive Life Academy, Leadership Squad, Divine Feminine. Or Instagram, which is RebeccaDavison.life. Yeah, those are probably the two best places, or my website, which is just again RebeccaDavison.life. But you know, I love to play, right? I love to step people into the energy of creativity, that I am the creator of my reality. I have so much joy in my work. I had a client yesterday and rocks a session just in tears with gratitude. And of course, you know, when you hear somebody's heartfelt gratitude like that, you're in tears as well because you're like so grateful for the opportunity. I know a lot of people are craving connection. They're craving wisdom over information. They're craving activation over information. Right. So again, energetically, because we're bombarded with information every day, right? But the activation is next level when you're willing to activate, right? And answering the call, which you've obviously done amazingly, Jessie, in terms of responding to the part of you that knows. I help people with, you know, their own relationships, because everything is a relationship. Your relationship with God, your relationship with your intuition, your relationship with money, your relationship with intimacy, your relationship with desire. It's all relationships.
Beautiful. So I'll make sure we have the links in the show notes so people can find you. And I got to ask you this question.
Oh.
Closing question. My favorite question.
Yeah.
What is the promise you are intended to be?
Ooh. Now, it's to be a light leader, to lead other people to the light. And I love that you asked that question, Jessie, because you know what? I'm quite open about the fact that I have had plenty of arguments with the universe. There have been lots of WTF moments. Like, there have been lots of like, you want me to do what? Right? Like, shock, you know, the ego, the resistance. But I also, like, the beauty of that for me is that perfect for light leadership. Right? I help people to connect to their infinite nature. I am a spiritual teacher. I am also an energetic alignment guide. So you can understand who you really are, get your mind, your emotions, your body, and your spirit all lined up so you can experience miracles. But yeah, the promise that I came here was, and again, overcoming a lot of adversity, overcoming a lot of identities, to know the truth of who I am and offer that to others. That's a great question.
You know this, when we say it out loud, the speed at which it will happen increases.
Yep.
So we just got to say it and say it again.
Yeah.
Say it again.
I have it on my fridge. I have it, say it out loud to the universe. We've got it written on my fridge. So we're on the same page there. It's so important. Use your voice.
Oh,
it's more aligned.
Did you have fun?
Yes, I had the best time ever. Thank you so much. That was so much fun.
Dang, you stuck around all the way to the end. And I hope the reason you stuck it like all the way through was because you were getting a lot of value out of the conversation. I always give at least one, most of the time, a handful of good nuggets, good ideas, good perspectives that I can take and apply into my life going forward. That's the whole point. I want to share that with you guys and also highlight the amazing people that they are. And I want to end this by saying, if you feel like you've been living out a script that was written for somebody else, and you feel like you're in the wrong skin, I know that life. And all I did was numb myself to make it through to another day, which if you're there, you know how hopeless that feels. I want to recommend that you check out Becoming the Promise You Are Intended to Be. The stories in this book will help you know that you're not alone. They're my personal stories, like the real stuff that I went through, and I'm sharing them because it helps keep me sober. It helps me contribute my gifts and my talents in service to others. It helps me turn my failures, my shame, my embarrassment into something useful and positive. So check it out. Be kind to yourself, be cool, and we'll talk at you next time. Peace.